What's up, people? I'm Shaggy, the opinionated hippie, and this is part 14 of my ranking and reviewing Frank Zappa's guitar solos within the context of an album, and then ranking those albums based on guitar solos only. Part 14, you can't do that on stage anymore. Part 5. Doing this out of order, we are now done with the stage series after this video. I will make one more stage video and where I rank all the stage solos in order compared to other stage solos. Then we're going to jump into a tour after that, like all the albums from a specific tour. Already done 88. Think I know what I'm going to do next. But anyways, there were 9 solos on this release, 7 on the second disc, which was the 82 era. Sadly, only 2 on the first disc, which was from the 60s. So 9, I'm going to go through them. I'll put the list on the screen when I'm done, and then I'll show the list of the ranking. So here we go. Number 9, No Waiting for the Peanuts to Dissolve. Just a mother's jam, crazy instrumental. Everybody does a little solo. We get a Lowell George solo, a Frank Zappa solo, a Bunk Gardner solo. I think both the Lowell George and the Bunk solos are more interesting than Frank's. Frank's is really just a vibe. He's just in the pocket. He's just in the groove. He's just between Lowell and Bunk. Not much to this. Just kind of swinging, feels good. Kind of doesn't really go anywhere. I do think Lowell George's that opens this is pretty interesting. Lowell George has another really good solo on Underground Freakout Music. And that is a great sort of bass. Dun, 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 dun. Really heavy little bass jam in it. But yeah, that's a whole other video that I already made. That's number 9. Number 8, What's New in Baltimore? This is not a bad solo because it's a Baltimore solo, right? I like Baltimore solos. I like the sort of patriotic majesty of sort of the What's New in Baltimore vamp that he solos over, that progression. But as a Baltimore solo, it's not a very good Baltimore solo. It's good, but it just cannot compare to some of those 81 Baltimore solos, which are just like I'm not worthy type solos. So not a bad solo, but it's just kind of a standard, tasty, does what a Baltimore solo should do, but there are better Baltimore solos out there. Number 7, City of Tiny Lights. The beginning of this is so laid back. Like Frank just kind of limps into this solo. And there were many an instance, unfortunately, where the City of Tiny Lights energy that's built up right before the guitar section, like in the 70s, there was that really heavy, that heavy vamp that kind of flowed naturally from the song itself. This one, by the time we get to the 80s, eventually, in 80, we get the Carlos Santana secret chord progression, and it's just a complete change in vibe. You kind of lose the momentum of the vocals, and in cases like this, not only do you lose that momentum, but the vamp itself, the Carlos Santana thing is maybe a little too laid back, and Frank's just kind of beep, 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 kind of limps into it. I don't know. If it was a standalone solo on something like Guitar or Shut Up and Play or Transfusion, I might like it more. But I just think it ruins the momentum of the song. And yeah, I'm only looking at the guitar solo, but I'm also listening to the song, so knowing where the guitar solo comes from. And I have a hard time getting into it for the first minute because it's just, that transition is so weak. I don't like it. It eventually picks up some momentum. There are definitely some nice moments as it goes on, some nice tasty runs. By the end of it, Frank has redeemed it and it's not that bad. But the beginning of it, it doesn't do it for me. And I kind of just that initial disappointment kind of lingers for the rest of it. But it has some moments, and it's not a bad solo. But it is number 7. Number 6 is Pound for a Brown on the Bust. On the bus. Yeah, this is just some really sort of dramatic energy in the very beginning, and then we get some just frenzy energy, and then some dramatic, and it's one of those where Frank is kind of definitely playing with moods. What else did I write about this? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Very chaotic, almost white noise ending. It's not white noise. It's not like everybody's just going, but Frank's soloing just becomes just so frenetic by the end of it that it just becomes this blur of just frenzied attack. So it's got a pretty nice like little arc the solo does, from like the drama of the early intro to the frenziness of the middle to the white noise chaos of the end. So yeah, pretty good solo. I think a jump up from City of Tiny Lights, just because from start to finish it's pretty cohesive, doesn't limp into it. But yeah, pretty good solo. Not great. There are as good as some of these solos are, there are better solos in 82 that Frank could have picked for almost any of those songs. So some of the choices are odd. And except for Baltimore, which I can't ignore the fact that there's much better solos. I'm trying not to ignore the fact that he could have picked better things. So the Pound for Brown one is still pretty good. Number 5 is Redunzel. Just a really solid Redunzel solo. I think it's a tale of two halves. The first half of the solo maybe feels a little just standard Redunzel energy, maybe a little bit uninspired, but about midway through the solo, everything just becomes really interesting and the energy just intensifies quite a bit. And it just like, by the end of it, the second half is really strong and it's more of like what you might expect from an 82 Frank attack. It just kind of takes a little while for that energy to build, and it's not there from the beginning, at least to these ears. Not a bad solo. Again, I have it ranked higher than the Pound, higher than the City of Tiny Lights, so it's pretty good. But I just think it takes a little while for that momentum to kind of build. We're just kind of treading water in standard Redunzel 82 territory for a while before things start to really get interesting. But yeah, pretty good. Oh, and I even wrote that it just feels like the band isn't into it at some point. I think that first half, it's almost like the band is just like doesn't care or something, or they're just not, it's just not working. But then eventually it does. And it does well enough to like lift this all the way to number 5. Number 4, Advanced Romance. And so far, all of these, except for the first one, number 9, have been 82 solos. No Waiting for the Peanuts to Dissolve was a 60s jam. Number 4, Advanced Romance. This is the same solo, but it's the full-length solo as the one that appears on guitar as Jim and Tammy's Upper Room, which is just an absolutely fantastic Advanced Romance solo. It's one of those Advanced Romance solos where every time that vamp comes around and we start over, Frank has a new idea or a new motif, or he's going in a new direction, and there's so many just like, I call it like those pocket solos where it's like all these individual pockets and he's like jumping from pocket to pocket, but within each pocket he's doing something fantastic. And it works just because there might not be a cohesive narrative thread that runs through the entire solo, but the energy is so good and Frank's ideas are so good and the band is so good. And he released this solo twice. I mean, essentially, he thought it was so good. Yes, it would have been nice to have maybe a different one, but we get the full length Jim and Tammy's Upper Room instead of the edited version that's on guitar. Both solos are excellent. Really good solos. And Advanced Romance bringing it. It's one of those that I'm hit and miss with just because it's been played so often. But it's a really good Advanced Romance solo. Number 3, the Only Other Mothers one. This is a King Kong solo called Baked Bean Boogie. This is just Frank swinging. He's in the pocket. It's smoking. It's good energy. It's like the late 60s Mothers at their very best. Just an absolutely fantastic solo. Some horns come in at the end, add a little slight level of chaos to it. Just great energy the entire time. I wrote it has almost like a very Grateful Dead-ish type playful energy at the end. I think Frank's guitar playing is more similar to Jerry's at this stage in his development than he would be later on. And it just feels like a high energy, full band jam a la The Dead, as opposed to like a Frank solo and everybody else simply exists to support him. It really has more of a cohesive Mothers jamming vibe. Yeah, and it's just a really, really good, long, taking your time, exploring some different King Kong pocket, swinging energy type. Yeah, really, really good highlight of disc 1. Baked Bean Boogie, that's number 3. And then these top 2 solos for me are like pretty much almost perfect. You have an Easy Meat, which is one of those very like spacious vamp where things kind of fall apart and everybody's kind of going chaotic. It's kind of all over the place. Not sure there's anything really cohesive to it. It's chaotic. It's messy. The rhythm section, Wackerman and Tunis are chaotic and messy. Frank's chaotic and messy. Everybody in the band is chaotic and messy. It's an all over the place. It's a type of solo where I think if like every band member represented a rubber ball and you were to like have people stand in the corners and just throw the rubber balls as hard as they can in like a room, and they just bounce at all kinds of crazy angles, and sometimes they hit each other and like feed off each other, sometimes they barely miss, sometimes they're doing their own thing. That's what these Easy Meat solos feel like, and I think it's fantastic. It's chaos incarnate in the version of a guitar solo. A fantastic guitar solo. Easy Meat opens up disc 2. Fantastic. And my number one favorite guitar solo on here, by far, a perfect creation, the Black Page number 2. This is, we get the Them or Us vamp once we get into the solo section, that dun-dun, and then Frank solos. Eventually the Yahozna riff from Them or Us starts coming in the background, and they're playing that sort of dun, 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 and then Frank starts soloing over that. Which one is it from guitar? Like that excerpt comes from like the latter half of this solo, so when things get super, super chaotic, like this is everything you want out of a Black Page solo contained over the course of like what's like a 7.5, 8 minute solo. You get like your normal Them or Us attack, then you get this riff coming in that's playing on a loop, then you get just pure chaos coming in, and it's just like noise. Like the last half of this is just noise, but the guitars are going and the loops are going and the band's going crazy, and it's just like, I wrote, it feels like an action movie. It feels like Frank is running the gauntlet on an action movie, like Running Man. And is that Running Man? Was that the one with Arnold Schwarzenegger when he's on the video game, the sort of pre-Hunger Games type thing? But it's like he's running a gauntlet and people are attacking him, and then he hops on like a motorcycle, and that's the Yahozna riff. And yeah, just an absolutely chaotic solo. Whole bunch of the loops. It feels like a war, but with different phases of the war. Like we have an early battle, then the battle intensifies, and the battle gets crazy. Just, yeah, an exhilarating adrenaline shot of pure 6-string madness. That Black Page solo is perfect. It needed to be released, and it was. It's hot in this room, people. Summer in Texas again. But anyways, that's number one. There they are right there, people. That's what they look like in written form for you to see. Those top 3, I think a cut above the rest of them. Pretty much the standouts, with Easy Meat and Black Page 2 even being a cut above Baked Bean Boogie to my ears. And then where would this album rank? This album falls right there. So yeah, it's up there with the stage ones. I think the stage ones are all pretty good, other than Volume 6, which was quite a disappointment as far as guitar solos go. The other ones have been pretty good. 2 and 1, the first 2 he released, I think the strongest, and then we kind of drop off for 3, 4, and 5, but not that much of a drop off. There's not a big numerical statistical rating discrepancy between 1 and 7. After 7, there's a drop off to number 8. Then there's quite a big drop off to get down to Volume 6. But yeah, number 7, right there in the middle, right there in the middle of the list, and one of the bottom. You can't do that on stage, but still much better than Volume 6. So, anyways, those are my thoughts on that. I do have one more stage video coming probably the next couple of days, which I'll just wrap up my thoughts on this series as far as guitar solos go. And then we'll move on to something else. So, anyways. Thanks for watching, people. I appreciate it. Subscribe, share, like, and go listen to music. If you have not heard that Stage 5 Black Page solo, fix that air now and make your life a better, happier thing. And go enjoy that, because it is over-the-top incredibleness. But that's it, people. Thanks for watching. Peace. Talk to you later.